Hi, Flosstube. It's Arlene here. It's Saturday, June 1st. Yeah, we've flipped the calendar into June. Um, I had really wanted to come back in the month of May, but it's been 4 weeks, and I'll talk a little bit about how the month has flown by for me. Um, I have so much stuff in all locations because I have a lot to share and a lot of stitching, including some things that have been my secret projects for the last few months. Um, so, it's like I've been making lists of don't forget to bring this and this and this to the area, and I feel like I'm inevitably going to forget something, but we'll see how this goes. I have FFO'd stuff to show you. I have new patterns to show you. And that has really been my big thing. The month of May has been filled with two major projects. So my own version of Mania, which I talked about briefly at the end of my last video. I have a college reunion coming up, and I volunteered to do a pretty important project. The reunion is next weekend, but it was the volunteer piece I volunteered for was putting together a record book, and that took up many hours over the course of this month, but it's done, sent, print. It's the printed version is on its way to me. Digital version is already available to classmates. But then the second big project of the last few weeks has been working on finalizing patterns that have been a part of my life in these last few months in different ways, and I'll get to that soon enough. But let me start this video with a giveaway, which I don't get to do too often, but this is thanks to the kindness of a viewer and a Instagrammer out there, Zoe. Thank you. I bet you're watching now. She contacted me via Instagram some time ago, and this arrived to me pretty soon after my last video, but I couldn't get it in the last video. I have spoken a number of times about this book, Owen Jones' The Grammar of Ornament. I have found so much inspiration from my patterns for launch-offs of my patterns. I'm pausing because the dog Maddie is here, and she's making a lot of noise downstairs right now. Just wondering what she's doing down there. She's doing okay right now. There was a period of time where she wasn't doing okay, but she's okay right now. But I might need to stop and check on her. Okay, so you have heard me, if you've been watching me for a while, talk about Owen Jones' The Grammar of Ornament. This is from the 1870s or so. There's been reprinted versions of it in all kinds of ways ever since it first came out. This version of it is just the color plates. I actually own three versions. I own that. This was a book that was given to me. This is a recent printing, 2015, where they've taken the plates, but they've also broken down and added in all kinds of information. But they've rearranged the way the pictures look from the original. So even when you had a full plate, they haven't put them in the same way that Owen Jones originally had them organized. The way I was originally introduced to this book was through a version that looks like this. One of the libraries in my area has a copy of this. I have at various times taken it out and kept renewing it, bringing it back and taking it out. Like there was a period of time where I had it for over a year because no one else needed it. I liked that version, which is to say this is a reprint of how it was originally. Sorry, I'm struggling with it. So you have the full plates, but then you also have all the text as Owen Jones originally had it published. So this smaller version has basically this just rearranged. I found this at a book sale for like $5, and I was like, it needed to come home with me. So, but the truth is, so here's my copy of the paperback of the plates, the big guy, the smaller guy. Zoe contacted me and said she found a copy of this and would I be interested in doing a giveaway with it. And I loved that idea. I know many floss tubers do giveaways for patterns, for threads, for fabric, for in honor of number of subscribers, in honor of Flosstube anniversaries. I'm just doing a giveaway just because there was a little kindness out there in the world, and I want to pass it forward. So if you are interested in having a copy of the Owen Jones, The Grammar of Ornament, and doing whatever you want with this, I mean, I just find it's inspiring. And there will be more Owen Jones in my future. So I was trying to figure out how are we going to do this. So leave a comment where you're using the word grammar, and notice it's spelled Grammar, not ER. I was just Googling this beforehand because I knew there was some sort of jokey thing. I know this from being a teacher. I'm a math teacher, but good friends with a lot of humanities teachers and spellers and all that kind of stuff. And I knew there was a joke related with Kelsey Grammer and ER versus AR and whatever, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. So grammar. Use the word grammar in your comment. You liked learning grammar, you hated learning grammar. What does the word grammar have to do with the title of this? I don't care. Figure out a way to get it in your comment if you are interested. And I will say this, Zoe in her kindness sent this book to me from the UK. So I'm going to pay it forward and be willing to send this anywhere in the world if you are interested in this. So if you'd like to enter the giveaway for a copy of this book, comment below. So that was very first thing on my list. I guess I should say all the typical, don't say giveaway, please be a subscriber, all those typical things. I want to move things out of my way, but I don't even have space to move them out of my way. So I hope I'm not going to mess anything up. And all right, so the one thing I did forget is to bring a glass of water up here with me, but I'll be okay. The next thing on my list is a major FFO, which is to say I didn't do the finishing of this. If you have been with me through my stitching journey of a piece called Gossamer Lace in Blackwork, I finished it back in January time. And I knew for a number of reasons I wasn't going to get it framed for a bit, but I did a few weeks ago bring it to a framer that does a great job with needlework, and I have it back just yesterday. I picked it up. I posted on Instagram. Okay, I hadn't even looked to see, so it's big, and it's a big one. I'm going to have to stand up so that you can see this. And I think it turned out really great. I do not have glass on it, and I'm going to try and so you can see the frame. It's like the wood part here is a gray wood. I guess that's the way you describe it, but then I also had a silver fillet put here. So it combined a gray and a silver, which this alone just didn't look right. And silver, all the variety of silver frames just didn't work, but putting these two things together. I did not have glass put on it, partially because I want to make sure it can travel places. What places is it traveling, you may ask? I'm glad you asked. All right, so now I'll just talk what you can look at it while I'm talking. So at the end of this month, StitchCon is coming up, and the wonderful folks at StitchCon, through Barbara Keepsakes, invited me, WorksByABC me, to have a trunk show there. So I will be, if you're going to be at StitchCon, they will have, I don't know how many, last year, how many trunk shows did they have? They had a ton, which is wonderful. You get to see models, and that's always just great. I'm lucky that the LNS that is my local store always has trunk shows, and so there's always tons of models, but I know not all stores either have their own models or have trunk shows all the time, so it's just a wonderful opportunity to see things in person. So this, along with a lot of my other pieces, will be there. And then I'm also planning to send it this summer to the ANG, American Needlepoint Guild, exhibit, where I have sent pieces before, and I will get a chance to talk about that more this summer, but that is a competition where they highly discourage glass. Like, they will take off points if you put glass on it. The last piece I sent there, I did, which was my 40 count silk gauze piece, that won many awards, which I was overwhelmed with. I did go back to the framer and have glass put on that. I don't know if I will do that with this. We'll see. But there you go. All right. Also in the FFO world, although not done by a professional, just done by little old me. I'm trying to remember, was this piece finished last time? Or was it getting close to being finished? I don't even remember. This was stitching that I was showing in the last few months, because it was a pattern that I put out in January. And right away, it was very, it was a good seller. And I love the saying. I love the border. I love the colors that I chose to put in there, although I always encourage people to choose their own colors. But I just knew I wanted to do a model of it, and I've just really enjoyed stitching on it. When it's stitched on 36 count over 2, which is to say 18 count, this is an 8 by 10 frame, so it fits very nicely. So I finished this and just got a frame and framed that up. But then, really so grateful to have, well, grateful to have many stitching friends in my world. There's one in particular who's going to be featured a lot during this particular video. If you don't know Saho, she is in Japan. She is under Saho Dream Stitch on Instagram and Flosstube. I think she has the same name. I will link her below. If you have seen her post, especially on Instagram, she's been stitching some models for me. And this is a piece that she finished and sent to me. This is called Margaretha's Flower Jugs. I came out with this pattern last summer. The design was designed by and published by a woman, which is very unusual, in 17, should have looked up the date. They weren't in color, they were black and white. The colors are my choosing. I just thought this woman needed to be known, and some of her, not all of her designs could be easily adaptable to cross stitch. They were for home textiles, and but it's so beautiful to see it in person. And Saho is a beautiful stitcher. So this is Margaretha's Flower Jugs. And of course, you could stitch only one of them, but you get both of them in the pattern. And thank you, Saho. And there's more thank yous to come. So that was just quite a little FFO parade of not new Works by ABC things. But I got some new Works by ABC things that I'm excited to share with all of you. And each of these, there are 6 that I have to share with you today. Each of these have a story behind them, and it's a little bit of story time with Arlene, and I hope you don't mind having a little bit of story time. The first one, if you follow, if you listen, if you're a regular viewer, if you were watching a video back in January when I came out with my last set of patterns, this one won't surprise you. Back in January, I shared, this is a piece of bobbin lace that I did a number of years ago. I did not design this bobbin lace, but I loved the look of it so much, and so much so that I wanted to recreate the geometry, the symmetry, the design of it in different forms. And I did that. And I talked about this, there's this and 3 other pieces that I did in an early 3rd or 4th Flosstube video. I'd have to go back and figure out exactly which one. So this was the original bobbin lace. And in January, I came out with a pattern that is that design in effect in cross stitch. And as a part of that, describing it, I believe I showed, or at least I talked about, the blackwork version of that bobbin lace. And more than one person made a comment of, I would be interested in the blackwork pattern. And I even knew at the time that I had wanted to, because people have asked for blackwork patterns. And this was one that I, in effect, already had. I mean, I had the stitching. I dug out the graph paper that I used, but a lot of it was I started graphing out on graph paper and then was stitching. So the graph paper was only minimally helpful. But here you go. So the first pattern to share with you is called, well, it's this. Let me put this down. Oh my God, there's so much stuff here, people. So, woven geometry in blackwork. This, what I stitched on, sort of the traditional white fabric, black thread. You're not limited to that, but that's what this is. I have some explanation in here for what I'm about to say. Because I stitched this years before I ever started creating my own patterns and doing this Works by ABC thing, I was stitching in a way that made sense to me. And I talked about this recently on Fiber Talk. If you listen to Gary, does a wonderful podcast twice a week. And about once a month, I am his Wednesday chatting partner. And we were talking a little bit about this the last time. And I said, you know, if I were designing this now for the purposes of putting it out there for stitchers, I might be doing it totally different. But what I did back then involved needing to get like off track with the graphing. All this to say, and I have this completely written out and explained on a full sheet right here. This is the kind of design that is best for linen or even weave, and it is not great to do on Aida, unless you want a giant piece. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And if you are an Aida stitcher and you love blackwork and you want to understand more, send me an email. Would love to explain more about it. You can do it. It would just be a very large piece based on how I charted it. What's my email? I'm glad you asked. Thank you, Olivia and Elena. WorksByABC@gmail.com for any questions. But it is so much fun, and it took way longer than I thought it would. Just to take something that, like I created, I had it up right in front of me. I could take all the pictures I needed. I could blow them up. I could study with a magnifying glass if I needed to. But to recreate this on the computer took longer than I thought. But there you go. First pattern to share with you today. Next one is a cross stitch pattern. I will forever be connecting this one, as with others, with my wonderful trip to California back in February. And the specific reason this one that I'm about to show you is because I was working on the charting of this on the plane back and forth, or on both plane rides. It has nothing to do with anything I picked up when I was out there, but there's some of that to come. This was just simply the perfect thing to do on a plane ride for me. Over a year ago, a pattern I put out called 6 Pages from 1603. These designs came from a French book that was published in 1603. And I just thought that they're beautiful and they hold up 400 years later, over 400 years later. And this also has been a very good seller. I know I had this at the Flosstube retreat a year ago, and I ran out of copies and had to mail copies to people who wanted them. I turned back to this same book, this French book from 1603, to see what else is there. There's a lot. So I'm introducing to you today symmetrical squares. Now these are 18 squares, and I've put in a coloring scheme there that it came from a Trish Burr, and I see here, hold. See, here was something I was going to have out. Let's see if this bookmark is exactly where I want it to. Yes, look at that. The color scheme came from this book, Color, Confidence, and Embroidery by Trish Burr. And this, well, maybe not on this page. One of these pages of color schemes. This is pastels, vibrance, yeah, this is it. Antiques. And so I just, in a computer-generated picture, because let's be honest, that's what this is, I just put those in. Now you could do just a sampling. You could just do 9 of these and make a square. You could rearrange it. You could make one long 18 long length bell pull kind of thing. You could just stitch one of them. There's my camera. Or actually 2 of them. And make a scissor fob. So that is just to show you that when you have a pattern like this, where you are getting these little designs, you can stitch it in all kinds of ways. So also in the show on Fiber Talk a few weeks ago, we were talking about sulky threads, and I did mention that I had recently stitched a small little something using sulky threads. This is on thread. This is on 32 count over 2, and I'm trying to get as good. That's pretty close up there. I was surprised. I feel like the last time I played with the sulky thread, I was not happy with the coverage at 32. But maybe it was more like I was so happy with the coverage at 36 that I couldn't believe I'd be happy with the coverage at 32. I'm trying to hold it there to keep the focus there. But that coverage at 32, yeah. I'm going to come back to sulky threads in this video, but just know that I had in my mind that I was not going to have the time to stitch the whole thing. There may be some of that in the future. We'll see. But I would love to stitch 1 or 2 squares, and then as it came to me to turn it into like something like this, a scissor fob. And I have any number of threads I could have used. It was just a spur-of-the-moment idea to do this, and I actually love how it came out. So there you go, symmetrical squares from 1603. And they do come. I have some background, as I always love to do, some background information. This is the cover of the book, and this gives you a sense of what the pages look like that I pulled these from. Okay. The next, which is a cross-stitch pattern, I told you Saho was coming back in the conversation. And another part, so I mentioned how the symmetrical squares were part of my trip to California from back in February because of how I was charting on my plane rides. This is a different, this next pattern is also very much connected to my San Francisco, LA, that whole California adventure, but in a different way. This purse, vintage needlepoint, we'll call it what it is. It is tiny, tiny stitches. I did count it out. It is on 40 count silk gauze. And as much as I can tell, it certainly looks hand stitched. Now, hand stitched in a factory in China, hand stitched by a society lady during her afternoon teas, who knows? This was purchased when McKenna and I were together at the, we all know McKenna. She's a dear friend. We had a great time together on that trip, and there's lots of wonderful memories. One of the places I dragged her to, but I think she did enjoy us very much, was the Lace Museum, which is in Sunnyvale, California, south of San Francisco. But in addition to lace, they have lots of hand-made items in there for sale. I mean, they've all their display area, but then they had a whole area of things for sale. And we both saw this, and I think McKenna saw it for just a beautiful item to own in terms of a purse. And I saw it and thought, design possibilities. So it was a joint project to own it. So here it is. It will go back to McKenna. It is hers to own, but it has been on loan to me to make it into something. Now, I wasn't sure where I was going with it. The whole design itself is an odd shape. You can see how the front and back are not completely identical, but very close. The color of the main flower is different. There is a side piece that is identical from one side and the other. I mean, it's a beautiful item. It's also on 40 count silk gauze, which means if you're attempting to stitch it larger, it gets very big. Here's what it inspired me to create. A pattern called Flowers for My Stitching. And what I've done is I've taken motifs from this and created smaller items. So here's a box. The box comes from Michael's. It's, easily purchased. I created a top. This is, it's meant for photos. So it's easily, you can insert something pretty easily there. In this pattern, you get the full alphabet, so you can, put whatever letter of the alphabet you want. You can recognize those swirls right there come from swirls here. This little string of blue and green, little strip swag of them right here. What do we find inside the box? Well, a pin cushion, yellow flowers, and there you can get a sense of the difference in size. I made a needle book, which I just realized I need to add a few random needles to it. So a needle book, and you can see this pink flower here came from here. And I took one individual blue flower, and from that we get a needle minder. And I just have a needle attached to it. Now, the other item that might have made sense would have been another scissor fob, and actually I had an original idea for scissor fob, but this ended up being too big. So it became pincushion. Now, I just need to acknowledge with love and kindness and gratitude that Saho did the stitching of these items for me. Thank you, Saho. You are a treasure. Thank you. So, the patterns for all 4 of these, as well as I didn't get fancy. I'm no Vanna, okay? We're just going to acknowledge that. This finishing is, I didn't get fancy with it, but I didn't finish that sentence, did I? The instructions for the finishing that I did, it's very simple finishing, is included in here. All DMC thread is what I use. Obviously, you don't need to stitch on dark color fabric, but I just thought the colors would just really pop. I mean, you could see the original were certainly not on dark colors, but I really love the way it looks. So, flowers for my stitching, the smalls, and you might have other ideas of what to create with these. Okay, the next 2 items are really what a lot of my, quote, secret stitching has been that I so wanted to share with you. And I made the conscious decision. I haven't quite figured this out for myself. When designers choose to share, or times I have chosen to share ahead of time or waited until I was completely done and putting out a pattern. But here we go. So this also was inspired completely from my California trip. During the Los Angeles portion of it, I went to the Getty Museum. I believe I talked about that. And there was an exhibit called Artful Words, and it's titled Artful Words, Calligraphy in Illuminated Manuscripts. It explored calligraphy as an art form in the pre-modern world, so, going back centuries. There was one particular page on display, and it was blown up so you could really see it. I mean, the actual size was I mean, this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I want to say actual size, it was smaller than this. And I was just so taken, as were the curators, because they used this image. I was so taken by the knot work here. And then when you look up close, do you see how that knot work is actually made up of words? Well, you can see the letters, and you may be straining right now to say, what does it say? What does it say? And I'd be impressed if you could tell, because it's actually in Latin. And actually, if you look really closely, that bottom, this image isn't good enough to tell, but that bottom is even in tinier words. Anyway, so there's a butterfly, there's pear. This is actually called this page is actually called Butterfly, Marine Mollusk, and Pear, from a particular book that was printed in the 1590s. I loved this. I knew in the moment I needed to do something with this. So the first thought was, you know, can I even translate it to like a graphed vision? And then the second thought was, well, if I can I then take it a next step and do something with words? And the answers to both of those questions is yes. So I present to you, not that the direction really matters, but it matters to me, my cross-stitch version of this. And I am calling this Not Your Needle. Get it? Not Your Needle in cross stitch. This design is by mathematical definition, a knot, meaning you can start anywhere and follow the path, and you will get back to where you started, and you will have covered the entire design. That's what makes a mathematical knot. It goes the whole way. In my mind, I started here in the center, and I started around. The way I have done this cross-stitch version is you can see the paths as they went under and over, if that makes sense. Because on the Latin writing, you could see where it goes over and under. And I was mimicking that with the cross-stitch. Now, you may be wondering, how did you do the finishing of that? This is a canvas like artist canvas, and I found that you can get artist canvas that is circular. I had really wanted to, well, let me pause on that for a second. Let me come back to the finishing in a second. So, one pattern I have available is Not Your Needle in cross stitch. In retrospect, I would have stitched this in a different color. I used the new DMC Etoile thread. I thought, hey, I'm going to get a little shiny sparkle out of this. You gotta like really do like this kind of thing to even get the slightest bit of sparkle. I'll be honest, as a cross stitch thread, I'm not super impressed with the amount of sparkle that I got from this. And so I really wish I guess I had gone with a brown because I was thinking, oh, I want to make it like a page from an old book. I should have done like navy or something with this linen colored, that's what it is, like raw linen is the name of the color fabric. This is on 36 count over 2. But there it is, once I got started and I saw, I got enough in and said, I am not impressed with the lack of sparkle. Oh well, there's nothing I can do about it. So remember how I said 2 things? Could I create it in cross stitch? I did. You can now buy it. But then I wanted to take it a step further, and I did. And so, again, I gotta, for my own satisfaction, hold it in the right direction. This is the larger size version, and when I hold it like this, you might be thinking, okay, it's the same. But when I bring it closer, you see how it's in words? Yeah. These are not Latin words, these are English words, people. If you start, so again, I know which way is up because of my finishing ribbon. So the ribbon is at the bottom here. I start right here with the word so. So that art seemeth merrily natural. I can hold, it's hard for me to hold it here. So that, this direction. So that art seemeth merrily natural. Okay. And if you follow that path, and there's, where the lines cross, I had to like carefully make judgments. And there might be a few places, especially, I tried to stay true to what I was actually charting. What was I charting? I forgot. In keeping with the time period of the original design, 1590s, I got kind of close. I went back to another old favorite, like Owen Jones, The Praise of the Needle. Now, one of my very first patterns was using the first 8 or 10 lines from The Praise of the Needle. You may not realize, and this book has background as well as the full thing. I want to say it's 138. The main poem is 138 lines, plus then there's these sonnets that come after it. So it's a significantly long poem. It's from 1631. And so I have charted out, I wrote this, 56 of those lines. If you begin at the center and head toward the right, so that art seemeth natural, you will end up reading a total of 56 lines, speaking about stitches and about the women who create them. In a few places, I chose to modernize the spelling. For example, in that very first line, the word natural, at least in this book, has 2 L's at the end. So I chose to modernize some spelling, but in a lot of places, but as you go along, if you encounter any unusual words, I left them there because they needed to be there, especially because it is a rhyming poem. And you can't change the words at the end because then they won't rhyme. At the end of a line, because then they won't rhyme. Now, how do I classify this? It's not cross stitch. It's not black work. I mean, it's all back. It's a small back stitched alphabet. Look, you can see the word cross stitch right there. So I've struggled with what to call this because it's not cross stitch. I don't quite call it black work, but if you think of anything with just straight lines as black work, sure, call it whatever you want. Oops, I always need to keep these like as a, not as an X, but as a, you know what I'm saying. But I love how it turned out. Now, as for the finishing, I had so wanted to go back to the Stay Home Stitches Etsy store and website that I spoke of that has wonderful wooden circular frames with hoops. The challenge became getting a hoop that was large enough for this one. They don't exist. There wasn't a hoop. There's a larger like quilter's hoop that wouldn't have really worked very well for the well, I don't know. I didn't even pursue it. I didn't have enough fabric on the back to use a larger quilting hoop. I needed 16 inches, and I couldn't find a 16-inch hoop. I certainly could have done one for this, but I wanted them to match. So this is an artist canvas, and I've just stapled. I've left the back open so I can share with you all. I just stapled into like the, wooden piece that they provide here, and it's worked perfectly. It's a perfect way to finish off a circular thing. Keep that in mind. It's not easy to find them. These, I did find a Hobby Lobby. It's just not my first choice to shop at, but I've also learned you can find them at an artist supply store. And I have a great one that is near me called Jerry's Artorama, which also you can buy online, and they have good prices. I am excited. So this was a big stitching project over the last couple of months. I started it pretty soon after I came, well, I was probably working on this right after I came back in February from the California trip. This didn't take that long. This took a lot longer. And so if you are intrigued and get the spirit of the history of it, both parts, both the design and the words, Knot Your Needle in Words. Again, it's not cross stitch. I feel a little funny calling it black work. History on the back of each of these, and The last design, new design to share with you, then became my most recent stitching project. It was actually a design idea that came about literally the day after I released new patterns last August. So last August, I put out a video. It was the beginning of the month, beginning-ish of the month. And the next day, or maybe it was the day after that, I just gave myself a little day off from everything else and took a trip down to Winterthur in Delaware. And that day, I was there to see some exhibits and it's just a nice day away. And there was an exhibit there called Dining by Design, and it was about dinnerware and china and the fancy layouts of things. And there was this hanging on the wall. These are dishes. This is a particular fancy set of dishes. But the way, and these were mounted on the wall, or this whole thing was mounted on the wall. And I looked at that and instantly thought, that's a canvas work design right there. Then, of course, I had to go over and read what's up with this, and there was a whole thing about that particular set of dishes, but even more so, there was a whole thing about the layout. The layout of this set of dishes comes from a book that was published in 1769. You get a history lesson when you watch my Flosstubes, people. From 1769, a woman by the name of Elizabeth Raffold wrote a book called The Experienced English Housekeeper, first published in 1769. The book contained over 900 recipes and gives instructions for laying out different courses of a grand table. This is the layout for first course. So inspired by Elizabeth Raffold's design of first course, I created this. Now, I just finished stitching this a few nights ago, so I haven't FFO'd it. It will be finished in the same way I finished my other canvas work patterns. Now, what's up with these stitches? These are all variations of Jessica stitches. If you have done any canvas work, you might be familiar with that. If you have not done any canvas work, well, you may have encountered Jessica stitches as a specialty stitch in some counted thread stitches, patterns. This is on 18 count canvas. Can you do this on fabric? Well, I have a little experiment that I want to show you. This is one example of a Jessica stitch on a little scrap, like literally a scrap of 36 count fabric. I did it, but it doesn't hold as well. Like it stretches out. Like I had to be very careful not to tug and get the fabric thread out of whack. Whereas when you're doing on canvas, you tug a little bit and it just helps it look nice. I don't know how else to put it. I would love to, if someone wanted to try doing this exact whole design on a piece of fabric, go for it. I just think it's easier if you were doing it on canvas and you had the stiffness of canvas. I know there's some floss tubers or some people who are watching this floss tube right now who maybe have never used canvas, maybe have never even stitched on canvas before. And if you haven't watched my other videos, you may be like, what is she talking about? But I've always encouraged people to try new things. This may not be the project you want to try. I have my other canvas work designs, which I have called and truly believe them as beginner canvas work. This one I might label a step above. Let's call it maybe slightly more advanced beginner. Nothing higher than advanced beginner. So these are all Jessica stitches, but they're all variations of it because depending on the size, the length of each sides, and where you put your first stitch, you get a different look. Now the color is even getting washed out here, which I knew it would be. I had trouble getting pictures of it. What thread did I use? I did not really use floss. I used number 12 pearl. You can get this at the big box stores, not the color range you might want, but you can get some basic colors, and then of course at L&S's and ordering online. So think, there we go, 3041, 3042, think those colors, and a gray as an accent color. But you could do this in any color scheme that you want. I did also use I needed the accent color in floss to do the background. What do you get when you get this pattern? You get a lot, and I mean a lot, of instructions. There are pages and pages and pages of diagrams, and you can see it's very picture heavy because I want to make it to have people try something. You don't have to love everything you try, but I hope you give something a try. I also know that there is the challenge of somebody saying, well, I want to give that a try, but I don't know where to get that canvas, and oh my gosh, I was just Googling it, but I can't buy a small piece of it. Well, you can get it from me. So on my Etsy store, you will see these 6 new patterns as well as all of my other patterns in 2 formats. You can buy, I sell both the physical pattern. I will get you one of these. I will put it in the mail in an envelope to you. Or I sell PDF versions, so you can have it instantly. Download instant. For my canvas work patterns, they are listed as 3 options. The paper pattern, the PDF pattern, or the paper pattern with a piece of canvas. Well, this is a little too big, but I will send you a piece of canvas this size. You can stitch in hand. It's not comfortable for me, but some people will do it. You can buy some wooden bars like this. You can attach canvas to fabric and then attach the fabric to Q-snaps, and I describe that in some of my canvas work pieces, patterns. I do not in any way suggest putting canvas directly into Q-snaps because I think it'll break the Q-snaps. And again, it's the kind of thing of, hey, I'm kind of interested, tell me more without me wasting any more time here. Send me an email, WorksByABC@gmail.com. Be happy to chat with you more if you want to give something a try or you haven't done it before, or how difficult are those Jessica stitches, or that looks pretty cool. Did I say what this is called? It's called Jessica's Dining Table. You have to understand the backstory to it. You have to know the history, that it comes from a layout, that the design elements come from the layout of a dining room table published in 1769, and that the stitches are all variations of Jessica's. That's why it's called Jessica's Dining Table. So there you go. That's my 6 new patterns. Now, here I'm so glad I wrote this note because I would have forgotten to say this. If you've been on Instagram and other various places I post this, you may know that, and it also came up in the Fiber Talk a couple of weeks ago, I have just passed my 2-year anniversary of Works by ABC. Officially on May 19th was the literally, wasn't hit send, it was hitting publish, I guess, to make my Etsy store live. I had really wanted to make this day of getting out new patterns happen on May 19th of this year. And it was because of the college record book project that just literally couldn't happen. I had a sale in my Etsy store during the 2 weeks or thereabouts to honor the 2-year anniversary. And now I felt bad that here it is, just as that sale is ending, like literally May 31st it ended. Now I'm coming out with new patterns, and I didn't want to discourage anybody from buying new things, or have anyone say, oh yeah, so now that she's got new stuff, now she's ending her free shipping and everything. So guess what? Not quite the exact full sale, but at least an important part of it. I am offering free shipping through the month of June. US only. No coupon needed. Just go to my site, free shipping. I'm being blatantly honest here. I'm doing this to encourage sales. Okay, I'm just saying that. And as a thank you to those of you who have supported me, and to encourage those to give a try. I know there have been times where I've been a little turned off from buying something because of shipping costs, and I'll speak to something in a minute, times when a free shipping offer came my way, yeah, it nudged me over the edge. So just because of the timing, because of what I had wanted to do, I'd wanted to have a sale of some kind to honor new patterns and the anniversary. Couldn't make it all fit together quite at the same time, so this is what I'm doing instead. So free shipping for the whole month of June. Would love your support. Now, I'm looking for, so something else I have loved doing when I have had new patterns in the past is giving away free patterns. So in my last video, I had said if you were interested in entering a giveaway for new patterns to leave a comment with your initials. I continue to do this the old-fashioned way. I have written names down and put them in a bowl. You know, that's what's going on here. Because the way I figure is I'd be like transferring names to a spreadsheet anyway. Like, there's work involved no matter how you do this. So why not have the tactile feeling of doing it this way? So I'm trying to do a good mix up here. I'm going to be picking 3 names. The people here, they can choose any of these patterns or really any of my patterns that you would like. We will be in touch and see what most interests you. So here we go. So the first person to win a free pattern, trying to make sure I get a single. There we go. I got a single. Is, oh, I recognize this name. Laura Ellis. Feel like you were in Arizona. I think you're going to be at StitchCon. Laura Ellis. Excellent. Second person to win a free pattern. Linda Craig. I know that name. This is fun when I recognize people. And the third person to win a free pattern. Single one. Ha ha! Cindy! How awesome is that? Cindy, I want to say Cindy and I started making videos around the same time, but I certainly know she was one of the first people to give me a shout out. And she is such a sweetheart. I hope that you all get a chance to watch her. I know, as with everybody, I'm so behind in watching videos, and I know I don't get to watch all of hers, but when I do get a chance to have a visit with her, this is awesome. It's always wonderful to give things away, but to certainly have names that I recognize. So the awesome, easy way to do this is that if you guys get in touch with me, WorksByABC@gmail.com, that would be great. I will try to, if I don't hear from you like soon, of course, I will make a comment on your comments, I guess is the way this is typically done. And you can choose any pattern you want in a printed version or a PDF version, however you would like it. It doesn't have to be one of these 6, but it can be one of these 6 or any older ones. So here's the deal. I am already at 52 minutes, and I still have some other things just a few other things I wanted to share. So I'm going to keep going because, like I said, there was just so much. I was excited to do a video finally, not just to show patterns and show finishing, but just some other things that have come up. I was stitching on that canvas work literally up until a couple of nights ago, and then when I finished that, I just picked up something that I wanted to, and this will be a quick finish. I'm finally doing something that I've wanted to do, which is to stitch Works by ABC. I am currently stitching it in, this is Ink is the name of the thread, in Water Lilies, which is, it's a silk, it's a had. To me, it's looking, the color looks wonderful here. I love the variation. I wish it was showing up more blue and not gray on here. So where I'm going with all this is that I might end up stitching it again. I wanted to stitch something like this so I'd be able to put a header on a website and use this in various formats. But it may not end up, I'm going to finish it because I'm this close at this point, but I may end up stitching it again using some other color. So we'll see. I wanted to briefly go back to sulky threads. So when okay, so I was talking about sulky threads before. I had this one spool of the 12 weight that I had purchased at a quilting store. And this is the sulky all cotton thread, 12 weight, you can find in like, what do you call it, full-size spools. But as they have been used in cross-stitch world, people have mostly talked about them in this size spool. So this size spool, and they're called cotton petites. See how it says petites up there? It's the same thread. It's just, this is 300 meters. This is 330 yards, 50 yards. 300 meters, 46 meters. They just realized when they wanted to start marketing to cross stitchers don't need 300 meters, 330 yards. They won't pay $6 or $7 for this, but they might pay $1.70 for this. So that's what, so this is the same stuff, okay? I got this literally like 2 years ago because it was a thread color that I loved. And my current bobbin lace project, which I need to get back to, I've used this thread, but not the 12 weight. I also have it in the finer, what's called a 30 weight. Is it 30 weight or 40? Yeah, 30 weight. Okay. So, again, on that after that fiber talk that I recorded a few weeks ago with Gary, I was back on the Sulky website. And here's where the free shipping came into play in my world, and here's another reason why I'm kind of paying it forward. I admit, I don't do this very often, but sometimes you use a website's cart just to kind of like save things that you like. Not that you're necessarily thinking that you're going to purchase, but you might. So I had been looking on the Sulky website what they have, and these are the blendables. Blendables meaning variegated, okay? And I got a light issue here, so I don't know how well variegation is. Oh, maybe you can see. You could see that that's a variegated thread. So I had a few in my cart. Again, I was just like, what are the ones I would like? If I could find a store where I could see them in person, like that was my thing. Which ones do I think I would like? Well, then when I went back to that website on that day or for those next, whatever it was, yeah, there was a free shipping offer going on. And that put me over the edge. I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to this. And this is so rare for me. I just so don't do these kind of things. I shouldn't say that because I did, and then I did something else too, which I'll show you. I purchased a total of 8 of the blendables, which is to say they're variegated threads. I have not yet stitched anything with them. I have a couple of these colors. I have some specific ideas of what I want to try out with them, and we'll just see if they give the look that. One thing I did really love, I really did like the way the variegation was showing up with this, with this one. I liked it. I like the color range, and that's one. I just like the way it was working, and so now some of these might be too much of a variegation. Some are very mild. This blue is a very what I refer to as a mild variegation, and then this one, while I love the colors in it, is much more variegated. This is so not showing up well at all. Well, anyway, so I treated myself to some sulkies. I even got showing up on their Instagram because I posted this picture and tagged them, and then I got I was showed up in their stories for a picture of all of these laid out. So you can buy individual spools directly from the Sulky website. One of the things that had turned me off when they originally came out is that you could only buy packages of 6 or 8 of them, and I only want to get colors that I think I will do something with, and I did it. So I will keep you posted as I end up, if I end up stitching anything with them. I will. Let's see. I think we're going to say the last thing I'm going to share with you. So this past Monday was Memorial Day here in the United States, and that is a day where we honor those who have served our country, who have given their lives to serve our country. And just the timing of all of this was pretty amazing. Some point this past week, I got this issue of the Embroiderers Guild of America, EGA, Needle Arts magazine, and it took me a few days to even. There's a couple of good things in here, but it took me a couple of days for me to even page through it, and I realized they had an article in here about the soldier kissing pillows. these little pillows, they're only about 5 inches by 5 inches, was a nationwide sort of grassroots project that was started 15 years ago or so. And the article is about how they've retired the project and the reasons behind it. But they have given out tens of thousands of these little pillows have been stitched by stitchers around the country and given to deploying troops and their families. And the idea is that every person, particularly a mom or a dad who is being deployed, has a little pillow that their kids and their family members have kissed, and they take it with them. And every family member they're leaving behind has a little pillow that mom or dad has kissed, and that's why they're called kissing pillows. They're very simple to stitch. It's just 3 colors, red, white, and blue, and the white doesn't even get used that much. I used that project to teach 6th graders to cross stitch for 5 years at a school I was at. It started a year where each grade was assigned a theme, which makes sense, for community service. And that year, the 6th graders, which was my home base, was assigned support the troops. And it was sort of like, this is not about wars, right or wrong. This is just simply support the troops. And there was some brainstorming of we could write letters and we could, try to make some connections and so on. And I said, well, I know this project and I'd be interested in looking into it. Well, the next thing I know, I'm teaching the entire 6th grade cross-stitching. Now, not that all the pillows that got started got finished, but it was pretty successful. It was so successful that the next year, at a meeting that I was not at, mind you, the other teachers decided we needed to continue the Kissing Pillow project. I was the one running it. I was the one doing all the work for it, and they decided, that worked so well, let's do it again. So it went on for 5 years. Over that time period, I could say that I taught over 300, closer to 350 6th graders how to cross stitch. From that, I probably ended up finishing off probably about 250 of those kissing pillows. I connected up with an EGA in my county and delivered them there, and they were then filtered as a part of the EGA's donation to some troops that were being deployed out of New Jersey. It's just a project that always, towards the end of the year, I was always madly trying to finish off as many as we could so that we could get a group picture. And so many years on Memorial Day or the Sunday Memorial Day weekend, I would be watching the PBS programming of the Memorial Day concert, and that weekend I'd be spending so much stitching time working on kissing pillows, and I admit, mildly resentful that I was giving up my own stitching time because I was, trying to either fix kid errors or more often just finishing them, FFOing them. But always watching that concert on Memorial Day weekend, because again, it was about trying to finish them off to get a group picture, always helped put things in perspective. This all coming back at me this week. So here's the article about they're wrapping up the whole project. They used some pictures. This picture right here. Yeah, I took that picture. Those are my students. I mean, this is from 5 years ago. These are students from the very first year. And they were so into it. And I should have taken out, I have all of them. So the years are roughly 2011 to 2016. If you have your EGA magazines and you're that interested, I could pull out mine and give you which issues it was. Every year I wrote into EGA, and there were pictures of my students about this project. I just wanted to share with you that my little contribution to trying to teach the next generation of stitchers. All right, I'm going to wrap up at this point. I've skipped a few things on my list, but nothing that couldn't hold until next time because I'm over an hour at this point. It was a lot of things to share. I am passing on the personal stuff for right now. We'll just keep going forward. I'll be heading to StitchCon at the end of the month, but I'm planning to come back with a video before then. That's going to be my plan. As always, I am so appreciative of this community. I'm so glad there are so many people out there. I'm so glad there are so many Flosstubes to watch whenever I need that stitching time in my life that I just need to see what other people are up to. I love the creativity that is out there. I love the support and care we give to one another. Thank you so much for those who watch, for those who comment. Your words always mean so much to me. I'm so genuine in saying all of that. I hope you all have a good evening, good week, good day, whatever time, day, week, time you're watching this. Till next time.